Welcome, everyone, to Complete Aviation Solutions Deep Dive number 83. This is where we take the information you provide and really dig into what matters.
That's right. Today we've got a few interesting developments on the radar. We'll be looking at an airline privatization push, then some regional fleet planning, and a pretty major legal case involving airline IT.
Yeah, some potentially surprising details about who might buy an airline, decisions on new planes, and, well, the staggering cost when tech goes wrong. Should be quite the deep dive.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump right in with this first topic, the privatization effort for a state-owned carrier. There's a deadline approaching, isn't there?
Yes. June 3rd, 2025. That's the date for potential investors to signal their interest, their formal expressions of interest.
And it's not just a small piece they're selling, right? It's significant.
It really is. They're offering a controlling stake anywhere from 51% right up to the full 100% of the share capital, and crucially, management control goes with it.
Okay. And the context here, there's pressure from an international financial institution, apparently.
Well, the sources suggest that, yes, encouragement, let's say, to speed up privatization for state-owned companies generally, and this airline seems to be a key part of that.
Now, they tried this before, didn't they, last year?
They did, yes. That attempt didn't succeed, but the government says things are different now, that they've removed some roadblocks.
Right. What specific changes are they pointing to?
Two main things. First, getting rid of an 18% general sales tax on importing new aircraft. That's important because apparently a fleet overhaul is sort of baked into the deal conditions.
Ah, okay. Makes sense. And the second?
They also claim they've cleared the last major liabilities off the airline's books, its balance sheet. So the idea is it's a much cleaner, more appealing investment this time around.
And they also feel that getting flights back into the European Union helps their case, adds value.
Definitely. Reopening those often profitable international routes that significantly boost the airline's potential revenue and overall network value. It's a big plus for a buyer.
So just to get a feel for the airline now, the snapshot.
Sure. It's listed as a scheduled carrier based out of Islamabad International, currently operating 32 aircraft, flying to 32 destinations across 89 routes. That averages out to about 73 flights per day.
Okay, so the government's definitely trying to paint a picture of a leaner, more viable airline ahead of that June deadline.
Seems that way.
All right, let's shift focus then. From a government selling an airline to a state government looking to acquire one and sort out its fleet. We're talking about Air Borneo now.
Exactly. The Sarawak state government's plan to buy MA Swings, which is currently part of the Malaysia Airlines Group, and then rebrand it as Air Borneo. They're aiming to finalize that purchase by the end of this year.
And a key part of this is the aircraft, the ATRs specifically. What's the plan there?
Well, the plan seems to be to hand back the current ATR 72-500s. Their leases are up in about 2 years, and they'll go back to the Malaysia Aviation Group. The Premier specifically said they intend to replace them with new aircraft.
Interesting. And the Premier had some thoughts on the current planes.
He did. Describe the cabins as quite cramped, which, passengers might agree with. And he suggested the cost of replacing them wouldn't actually be high.
Okay, but didn't he also mention maybe reconfiguring the current ATRs? Or even making one a freighter? That sounds a bit contradictory.
It does, yeah. That's the puzzle the source highlighted. He mentioned maybe reconfiguring for a less cramped feel, or this freighter idea for, time-sensitive cargo. But didn't really explain how that fits with the plan to return those same planes when the leases expire.
And the fleet isn't just ATRs, is it?
No, the sources state there are 8 of those ATR 72-500s, but also 6 DHC 6-400 Twin Otters. The Premier's comments, though, seemed focused just on the ATRs, so the future of the Twin Otters wasn't mentioned.
Right, and this all ties into the subsidized rural air services, which are pretty vital there. What's the status of that network?
It's currently running under an interim agreement that was signed back on December 19th, 2024, but it only lasts until December 31st, 2025.
So basically, this whole year, February through December 2025, is the critical window to sort everything out for the handover to Air Borneo?
Exactly. It's crunch time.
What needs to happen in that time frame? Sounds complex.
It really is. They've got to negotiate and finalize a whole new agreement with the relevant federal ministries. Then there's getting all the necessary regulatory approvals, that means the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, but also meeting standards from ICAO, IATA, the international bodies.
Okay, so government negotiations, international regulations, what else?
They also need to physically transfer the operational assets, planes,
Mm-hmm.
potentially ground equipment, maybe staff agreements, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
from Malaysia Aviation Group over to the new Air Borneo Holdings entity.
Mm.
And, of course, prepare everything on the operational side so the transition is, hopefully, smooth.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge checklist. Blending finance, regulation, logistics.
A major undertaking, for sure.
Okay, so from these big strategic shifts, selling an airline, buying and refleeting another, let's pivot to something different but equally impactful. Technology failure and its fallout.
Right. This involves a major U.S. carrier, Delta Airlines, and the cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike. There's been a recent court decision allowing Delta to proceed with some pretty serious claims in a lawsuit against CrowdStrike.
And this stems from a software update back in July 2024. What allegedly happened?
Delta claims that update caused, well, a catastrophic system outage. We're talking massive disruption.
How massive? What are they claiming in the suit?
The numbers are huge. Cancellation of 7,000 flights. Costs hitting over $500 million US dollars, USD 500 million. They allege the update got around safeguards, put in unauthorized, untested programming, and basically crashed Windows systems airline-wide.
Wow, affecting airport displays, employee computers, everything.
Everything. And they specifically mentioned the negative impact on millions of people, passengers presumably, caught up in the chaos.
So what are the specific legal claims Delta is making? Sounds serious.
Very serious. The lawsuit includes allegations like gross negligence, computer trespass, basically unauthorized access, and even fraud.
Okay. What's CrowdStrike's position on this?
Well, they have acknowledged there were flaws in that specific update, but their argument in court was essentially that Delta's claims, the type of legal claims, tort claims, weren't the right kind under Georgia state law. They also maintained they did have authorization to access and update systems as part of their service agreement with Delta.
Right, the subscription agreement. So how did the court respond to CrowdStrike trying to get the case dismissed?
The judge, Kelly Lee Ellerb, in Fulton County Superior Court, denied CrowdStrike's motion, at least in part. She found that Delta's allegations were detailed enough at this stage to support claims that CrowdStrike's access might have been unauthorized and reckless, even with that agreement in place.
Interesting. What specifically seemed to sway the judge, based on the sources?
It seems a key point was Delta's allegation that CrowdStrike had secretly changed how it delivered updates, possibly to avoid some kind of scrutiny. The judge felt that these claims about hidden actions, potential fraud, and gross negligence deserved to go forward for more investigation.
So the lawsuit moves ahead, towards discovery, maybe even a trial.
That's the outcome. The case, which started back in October 2024, can now proceed on those key claims. Some other claims were dismissed because of contractual limitations, but the core allegations remain active.
And the reactions from both sides. Predictable, I imagine.
Pretty much. CrowdStrike's lawyer is quoted as being confident the case lacks merit, or that any damages would be limited by state law to maybe single-digit millions. Delta, on the other hand, is pleased with the ruling and confident about their case.
And just for scale, remind us how big Delta is, that $500 million figure.
Yeah, it's huge. They're a major scheduled carrier, hubbed in Atlanta, operating nearly 1,100 aircraft, over 300 destinations, more than 1,000 routes, something like 500 to 300 flights every day. So yeah, $500 million in disruption costs is incredibly significant, even for an airline that size.
It really throws into sharp relief how completely dependent modern airlines are on their IT systems working flawlessly.
Absolutely. The backbone of the entire operation.
So looking back at this deep dive, we've gone from a government trying to sell a national carrier against a tight deadline to a regional government navigating the complexities of acquiring an airline and planning a new fleet.
And then landed on this massive legal fight triggered by a software update, highlighting the immense financial risk tied to technology in aviation.
What's the common thread you see running through these different stories?
For me, it's that constant, intense interplay between finance, operations, and technology. Every decision seems to sit at the intersection of those three. Privatization, that's fundamentally finance shaping operations. Air Borneo's transition, pure operational complexity, driven by a financial acquisition, needing regulatory tech approvals.
And the Delta case.
That's the starkest example. A failure in technology triggers massive operational disruption, leading to staggering financial costs, and now a complex legal battle. It shows how tightly wound these elements are.
It really makes you think about the fragility, maybe, or at least the delicate balance required in this industry. A major issue in finance, ops, or tech can just cascade through everything.
Precisely. Managing that balance, ensuring resilience across all three fronts simultaneously, that seems to be the core challenge for aviation today. Success depends on getting all those pieces right all the time.
A fascinating and slightly sobering thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive based on the information shared. Definitely gives us all plenty to keep thinking about regarding the forces shaping air travel.